Wow. How's
Hi,
it going?
Jeff.
What's up, dude?
I am a tired little bear.
Yeah.
Uh, I've been flying all over the country like some sort of person who flies
Ad
frequently,
man.
a frequent flyer.
Ooh, a frequent flyer.
I'm in a hotel from Richmond, Virginia, the place where Jeff and I found love. Um,
That's true. What hotel are you staying at?
I'm staying at the Omni, not a podcast sponsor, but
Oh,
my
okay.
stay here has been consistently adequate over the years.
Um,
So give
hmm.
him a shout out.
You hear that? Oh, there's a little
Do I hear what?
static on the line. Oh, I'm getting some static on the line from you now, but that's weird.
I
All right.
I don't hear
Hopefully it'll
any.
go away.
Oh
Um,
no! I have no idea if this podcast is being improperly recorded.
I think there is some static on your end, but it wasn't there a minute ago, so hopefully it'll go away again. This is
You
good
want me to?
podcasting.
You start talking. Maybe go to the running order, Jeff. I mean, the first
Yes.
item is
The first
yours.
item is Jeff. I love seeing that scroll across the screen there. I just returned today from a little town called Manchester in the north of England with my head low, partially because I was hungover and partially because I watched my team um, more or less throw away the league. But it was an interesting game. I've always it was my first away day as an Arsenal fan. I've always wanted to do that since I was a fan of the team, and I have to say that like in spite of it being like a real low point in the season and in like the story of this team and its development, I had a great time still. And so there's like it's a weird bittersweet feeling. I mean, it sucked to lose, but in a weird way, I took solace from the fact that it wasn't like if we had lost to them in a similar way that we had dropped points to Southampton recently or Liverpool away, I would have felt horrible then because it was like we had it in our hands and we lost it. But we've played Man City. This is the third time we've played Man City this season. I think the overall aggregate scoreline is something like 1,000,000 to 1, or no, we've scored. I think we've scored like 1 in each game, so it's 1,000,000 to 3. That's not a very good aggregate scoreline. They're a better team than we are right now. They might be one of the better teams that's ever existed. I'd have to say, and so yeah, it sucks that we lost, but I got to go there with 3,000-ish of the craziest Arsenal fans, and I sang until my voice sounds the way that it does now. And weirdly, I also got to hang out with my old boss from Hong Kong, who has moved back home to the north of England, and his friend, who is I don't know, how would I describe it? Like a celebrity in Britain, but not elsewhere. So
Who?
he was on a show called Dick and Dom in the Bungalow, and it was I think it's an interesting show because it was a kids show, but it came on early enough in the morning that people would like made it a habit of watching it when they were like coming back from clubs, like it's like
Yeah.
5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Sorry, I think you should switch off of your headphones. It is your headphones.
You do?
Yeah. You don't have any other headphones, do you?
No, this is it. All right, here we go, guys. Fantastic podcasting. Fantastic podcasting.
Indeed. Where was I? Oh, Dick and Dom. So yeah, they had this huge following. Oh man, now we have a pretty crazy echo.
What is it? The echo or is it the air conditioning?
I think it's just because you don't have the head. Try your headphones again.
I'll just turn the volume down on you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Just
Is this
listen
better?
very- Yeah, I think so. There we go. Yeah, so the show, now they're going on tour. And while they're on tour, it's meant for adults now. So
Like they
basically
rebooted it?
yeah, they kind of like rebooted it, but they rebooted it as like a stage show. Anyway, he was a very lovely guy. I met Dick of Dick and Dom.
Wait, so what's his actual name?
His actual full
Richard?
name. I think Richard is like Rich is like what a lot of people call him, I think, in real life, but then I guess Dick and Dom just sounds fun. They had like a
McCourt.
famous sketch that I think was basically just people screaming bogeys, kind of like, you remember the penis game? I think it was kind of like that, of just like who could scream it the loudest. And so all night we were like drinking in pubs in Manchester, and people were screaming bogeys at us. It was great.
Bogeys.
I think that's what they say for boogie. I think
Meaning like snot?
Yeah, like encrusted snot. People, they didn't scream encrusted snot. They just screamed.
It's such a
bogeys.
weird thing to yell because like it's like screaming urine. Like everybody has to do that.
I wonder if like, I don't know, I should have asked him this, but I wonder if like the origin was basically, this is the dirtiest word we're allowed to say on children's TV, and like this is, so it'll be funny to have people screaming it in public.
Poo poo.
Yeah.
Poo.
They should have probably said poo poo. I don't know.
Well, Jeff, let's not bury the lead there, though. Like, I feel like
let's talk about the game.
I feel a lot of empathy for
Yeah.
you, selfish empathy, because I had made my peace with you winning a Premier League as like the lesser of two evils, and maybe probably the better for our podcast story arc.
Probably.
But I'm really afraid City's gonna win the treble now, and selfishly, I'm like,
Well, you will have a chance to stop them. I mean,
but we're not gonna. Thanks.
Yeah. Honestly, if they play the way that's the scary thing about it. I think I sent you a video. I just tried to get like a random video of like, oh look, I'm at the stadium.
Yeah.
And immediately they scored in the video, which is kind of hilarious. It was the first goal, the De Bruyne one, and they're just very, very good. And then I think one of the interesting things about seeing the game live versus watching it on TV is like, I feel like often the camera is not showing what I most want to look at, because my eye just sort of wanders to what interests me. And I think one of the things that caught my eye a lot was the gigantic Viking in the middle of the forward line for City. And Erling Haaland was just so damn good. Like, it reminds me, I once went swimming with whale sharks, and like they look like very peaceful animals where like they'll just like swish their tail like that. But what you don't realize until you're in the water near them is they're actually just going like they are flying. They're just graceful. And that's how he was, where like he would take like a step and you realize like he's just separated 3 meters from a Premier League defender who's really good at not letting people do that. I mean, even Rob Holding, he's like also pretty good at it, to be, you know.
It's just his leg length, basically.
Yeah, it's that, but it's like he's so powerful that like, I mean, powerful in the sense of physics, of like he can move. It's like force over time or whatever. I don't know. Somebody correct me on what the real definition of power is. But basically, like he just generates so much force so quickly that he's just over here and then he's over there. And I don't understand how anyone can guard him. I mean, that one goal that he finally scored in like the 95th minute of the game, there's nothing going on there. It's like everyone's sort of doing what they're supposed to do. It's just no one can be near him if he doesn't want them to, you know.
Isn't it crazy how he has scored against, I think, every team that City has played twice? Like if he plays home and away, he's scored against you, and it's during a season when the narrative has been City doesn't usually play this way. Did throwing Haaland in there like fuck up their whole way of playing? And it's like, and he scored against everybody.
Yeah. It is funny that way. Like there was such a weird narrative to this season at the beginning. I feel like it's fading away now.
Well, because remember he had that huge streak of scoring, and then I think he went like 8 or 9 games where he only scored like 4 times.
Yeah, only getting a goal. I mean, but the other thing that was great is like, I think the criticism that I had heard of him, and I haven't seen all of his games, but I think early in the season people were criticizing him, saying like, sure, he's scoring goals, but like, what else is he bringing to the team? And is he screwing things up a bit? But like the way that he played last night, he was such a good team player. He was holding the ball up. He was dropping deep when he needed to. He was making runs that people could easily, get him the ball. But also they were the kind of runs that put the defense in disarray. I mean, he was on fire. I don't know. There's no way to say. He's very, very good. And then the combination of having to play against him would suck. The funny thing is, I might still rather have De Bruyne. If you let me kidnap one player from Manchester City and put them on my team, I think De Bruyne might be even better. He's just incredible. And he actually has a similar gait, which is weird because they're very different bodies, but like he's another one where he just sort of effortlessly floats through your defense. And you're like, why are they letting him do that? And it's like because you can't stop him. He's an amazing player too.
Is it like an illusion, or like am I misremembering? I thought he had kind of run into some iffy form, like in like maybe the last year or so,
De
compared
Bruyne.
to his like whole career of like utter dominance. You know, like a bit of a drop off. But am I imagining that? Because he's like in his 30s now.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like there was a little bit of that going around at the World Cup where Belgium just looked
Right,
like,
because they did nothing.
they just, but I think, I don't know. He having to play with 2023 Hazard as like the other best player on the team is not easy. I don't know how, it would be interesting. Actually, we should look at that, see what his World Cup was like. But to me, every time I've watched him in the league this year, he's just been incredible, especially against us.
Is he the kind of player that will still be good in his like mid to late 30s? Like it's rare that a midfielder can kind of play at the top level that long just because of the ground they have to cover.
It's a great question. I mean, he's so skillful too. Like all these like first touches, like you do wonder if he's the kind of guy that could like reinvent himself, and even when he's slow and old, still be good, just because he's got such technique.
I've done it, Jeff. If
Yeah.
I've done it, you'd assume that De Bruyne could do it.
I think that De Bruyne would be very successful in your old man league in Los Angeles. I think he would. I think he would be one of besides you. I think he'd be one of the better players on the team.
Jeff, I think you'd probably be like first off the bench. I feel like that you'd have that role in the depth
Oh
chart.
yeah, I would take that. I honestly, I'm not very good, so I'll take anything I can get basically.
I'm just kidding.
League,
that's my role.
in your league, do they have the? Do you have to like do like soccer style subs where like when someone comes off they can't go back on, and like if you're gonna put so basically like the subs, do they have to wait till like the 60th minute to get on, or
No. It's an 8v8 league full of people that are like hungover. So
yeah, okay, cool.
it's like either on the fly or it's when the ball's out of play, but unlimited.
Nice.
It's the whole like the weird thing is the whole like gender quota stuff. Because
right.
I love playing in co-ed leagues. I feel like it's a great way to just make friends. It's a great way to like to socialize, and I enjoy that aspect of it. And a lot of the women that I play with are very skillful and better than me, and it's a great vibe. The problem is when there's 3 or 4 on a team and you need to have 2 on the field at all times, and then 2 are like, oh, I am going to be out of town, or I have to work, or whatever a legitimate reason. There's nobody to sub for them.
And then for equality's sake, you have to just run the legs off of like the 2 women that show up.
And if they're already kind of semi-injured, then it's like you're almost asking them to hurt themselves further. So I don't know. I personally think that co-ed league should just be like do your best, and everyone should play, not at the physical expense of someone else. But
yeah.
It's me and my high horse, Jeff. This podcast has its roots in being obnoxiously liberal and
getting on your high horse. As you can see there, I just managed to segue away from what we're actually supposed to be talking about again,
which is hurt.
But I think that so much of football is not about what happens, but how and when it happens. And if you had told me at the beginning of the year that we were going to make Champions League, I'd say, cool, like that was the goal. And if you had told me that there were moments in there where we were flying really high and maybe we were like on form, one of the best teams in the league, I'd love to do that too. But it feels actually, ironically, it feels a lot like 2 of our last 3 games where we've had this early lead. Things really looked good. And then even though we ended up with a draw, the draw that we had at Anfield, that's not even like a bad result, really. But getting that draw after as you can tell, getting a draw after you're up 2-0 is, it hurts. And I think that's kind of the way that this one feels, where we really had no business challenging for the league this year. No one thought that's where we were going to be. But then when we did, for so long even, that I can't help but not feel great.
But Jeff, the truth isn't even a bad thing though. The truth is that you're not the best team in the Premier League, but you are a very good team, which is something you didn't know last year.
Right. Yeah, last year we were in 5th, and we kind of collapsed down the stretch to get there. Whereas
and before that, it was what, 8th?
Yeah, and before that, it was 8th
in 2
again.
seasons to go from 8th to 5th to, 2nd by a few points, like.
Yeah. And it's interesting. We're still technically top of the league. It's possible they could fall apart, but I don't know. It was really interesting to me if we hadn't dropped 6 points in a row in very winnable situations or against teams that we were probably supposed to beat, then it would be such a strange, imagine if right now if we had those 6 points and we were 8 points clear and they had the 2 games in hand or whatever, but all we had to do is sort of take care of business against, Brighton and Newcastle. And those are not easy games, but it's on some level you got to beat Brighton and Newcastle
Southampton,
if you want to win the league. Yeah.
Like some of these results are results that earlier in the season you were just getting wins in.
Right.
And it feels like, and I feel like I've seen this with my own team as well, but it feels like the pressure is a lot, and pressure plus a whole season of just beating the shit out of your own body. This is why really the advantage of Manchester City is 22 first team world-class players. And the fact that now Haaland pretty much stayed healthy all season, and he's I'm sorry, but it is kind of unfair. They're 90s Yankees right now, and I guess I know how it feels to have been a really good team in the time of the 90s Yankees.
Right. If you're the Chipper Jones Braves or whatever, and you just never get to win. It's like being the Patrick Ewing Knicks or whatever. The Charles Barkley everything. You never get. To be
Henry Roland-Gardner in Rookie of the Year.
I was like, wait, I don't know that. Not familiar with this athlete, but now I am.
He was a very young baseball player who got an injury that changed his life.
For the better.
You should have just called that movie Tommy John.
Yeah. Yeah. They do that on purpose now, don't they? To try to get a few extra MPHs?
I don't think it's on purpose, but I think when there's a small tear, they're let's just get it over with because it will happen. You might as well try and manage the timetable of the surgery and your return to fitness.
Yeah.
So speaking of return to fitness, Jeff, how what is your path forward for this? Say that City now the league. Let's say it's in their hands because it is.
Right. Yeah.
So if that's the truth and City's gonna win the league, I'm already gonna be upset about it for my own reasons. But how are you going to look at things going forward? What do you think about next season, etc.? It almost feels like it's April 27th. There's only a month left.
Right. I think it's weird. It'll be an interesting offseason for Arsenal because every other year, basically since I've been an Arsenal fan, there's been glaring deficiencies in the team where it's well, of course we're going to buy a left back because you need to have 2 of them and we don't, or stuff like that. Or even just of course you need a midfielder who isn't injured all the time, or, you need competent player. And we always had these huge holes in the team. So it's kind of interesting. We knew what we were at least going to try to do in the off season by now. Whereas with this team, assuming Saliba and Tomiyasu can come back from injury, then I think it'll actually be more difficult to it's a very different sort of game setup of how do you take a team from second place to first is almost a totally different problem than how do you take a team from 8th to 2nd. And so I'll be very fascinated to see how, Edu and Arteta kind of attack that in the offseason.
I mean, I'm sorry, but the answer is pretty much just smart spending is the only answer.
Yeah.
But spending.
I mean, but as Manchester United supporters can tell you, spending money is not a guarantee of success.
No, smart. That's why I said smart spending.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a tough one.
But smart spending means also you gotta kind of compete with City's depth somehow, and that means retaining all your good talent. getting decent money for the players that aren't going to work. Like, all of that stuff has to hit.
Yeah. I mean, saying that aloud, I guess that's really the task now, is getting a team in place where Arteta feels comfortable without, basically he plays like 12 or 13 guys and that's it. And we need a team like City. I mean, you look at, they have these amazing records going down the stretch where they just close out seasons. And, there's a lot of sort of lazy takes that you can have about that, of like, that's their winning mentality, and that's because they've been there.
Their
it's like,
players
well, it
aren't
also,
tired.
yeah, exactly. It's like, it helps that you have 22 of them. But it'll be interesting. I mean, I really don't think that they would stumble. I think it's like a 1% chance at this point. But
Jack Grealish is starting to play well.
Yeah, exactly. But they have a game every 3 days for the rest of the season, and they have some big ones. They have Real Madrid and stuff like that. So, is there any chance? But the problem is they just have 2 teams.
Madrid's the most likely place where they'll stumble, though.
Yeah, which does not affect the Premier League standard.
It doesn't affect the Premier League, and it doesn't affect the FA Cup final. I don't think. They have a week off between each of those last big games, so it's not like they would even rest players against us.
Yeah.
To save them. Oh, wait, no, Madrid is before then. The final will be after that, and they'll probably be in it, and they'll probably beat on some stupid Italian team that is in 5th or 6th in Serie A.
Yeah.
Man, this is like the end of days, isn't it?
I mean, because that treble that United won, have other teams done that?
No.
Like that, you're the only one, right?
That's why we say the treble.
Yeah, not a treble. That's funny.
I mean, there have been versions of trebles where like Jose Mourinho technically won one, but it's like the Supporters Shield.
Oh, the Europa.
Yeah. Was it even yeah, it was Europa against, was it Ajax?
What team was he coaching at that point? Was that
This is a great podcast. Anyway, yeah, I feel like there have been like minor ones.
But nothing.
I don't think a team has won a quadruple.
Best 3 that you're capable of competing for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any last words, Jeff?
Any last words before you put me out of my misery? I had so many things I wanted to talk about this game. I was like flying through my head, but I think I've mostly covered it. Or I'll just awkwardly segue back to it when they pop in my head later.
You'd be like, "That's right, Sir Jim reminds me of this Mikel Arteta story." All right, so Sir Jim's new offer. So this is all just based on journalism.
This sounds like a Judy Blume book, by the way.
Super.
If she wrote about middle-aged men. R.I.P. to my Super Fudge T-shirt that you bought me and I loved and wore all the time, but now it's dead.
I'm sorry. Wait, if I showed up with a Super Fudge T-shirt for you in August, would that be like a nice?
Oh,
thanks for having me gift.
That would be nice, but you don't know. Your presence is our presence.
AKA, I don't trust you, Schuyler, to make fashion choices for me.
No, you probably would do better than I do. Can't get worse.
So Sir Jim's new offer, apparently because Sir Jim realizes, oh shit, I don't have the money of Qatar, so if it comes down to just dollar for dollar, Sir Jim's gonna lose.
Yeah.
So he was already going to, I think, you take out further debt to acquire Manchester United. He claims he won't be putting it on the club, but you don't think that they'll expect to be paid back for that at some point?
Right.
And then there's also not necessarily a lot of money for transfers or stadium rebuild or refurbishment. So, like, we're trading, like, in theory, the Glazers for like a slightly nicer Glazer who says he's a fan.
Yeah.
And then it comes out that he's like, in order to try and jump ahead of Qatar in the pecking order for bids, he's willing to let the Glazers keep 20% of Manchester United if they'll sell him just enough to
like
have like 51%, to have like
yeah.
majority owners. And talking about this is kind of important because I've seen fans online taking polar opposite sides on this one. On one hand, people are saying, like, fuck the Glazers. I don't want them to have, like any 0.01% of United. Like, I want them fucking gone. They're garbage. They've been, like, cancer. That's like saying, all right, well, we'll get rid of 99% of the cancer, and we'll just like leave like a good like 1%, just for shits and giggles. And people have been like very opposed to that, and I get it. Like we want them gone. Like they
Sure.
are a disease. But then I've seen other fans recently talk about it like this: that the Glazers have no obligation to sell if they're gonna be as greedy as it's clear that they're the greediest fucking people that we've ever seen in sport, and that says a lot.
Right.
That they could just be like, Eric Ten Hag's doing pretty well. Maybe we could squeeze a few more years out of this, get a few more $50 million dividend payments, and then sell United for $8-10 billion, because they're fucking idiots and they don't seem to understand that they are like ankle weights
They're
dragging
ruining
us
it.
down.
Yeah.
And that we won't be worth a ton more when we don't qualify for a Champions League, when Ten Hag leaves to go coach Madrid or wherever the fuck would want him. Like, we will just implode. So like they don't see that happening. So they might be willing to like death grip with us. And so maybe if that is the thing, if letting them keep 20% creates like new leadership and like a new sort of impetus to succeed on the pitch, that still means that the Glazers would no longer have any decision-making power. They'd just be shareholders who would be benefiting if there is profit given out. Sorry, Jeff. I know I just like basically regurgitated 3 articles at you.
No,
but,
it's
like,
good.
I don't know how I feel about it. Because I'm still like kind of weird about Qatar, but like I've heard enough other pundits be like, "What are you gonna do?"
Right. Yeah, I mean it's a tough one because ultimately, I don't know, it feels similar to like the Super League thing, where I think when that came out, I was thinking, well, I don't want this to happen. This feels unethical and bad for the game. On the other hand, I definitely don't want it to happen and us not get invited. Like if there's a Super League and we're not a part of it, that is even worse. Like I don't want it to exist, and I don't want it to exist without us. And I think it's like a similar thought process with this, where it's like you probably would love to just have like Mr. Rogers own the club, or some person who is like nice and cool.
Mackenzie Bezos is who I would choose.
Oh, that would be amazing. But that's the thing. She would never put her money in something so frivolous as a
or Rebecca team from Ted Lasso. I think would be a good.
That would be good.
She's willing to spend for Zava.
Yeah. No spoilers, by the way. Still got a few episodes behind, I think.
Okay, well, that was a first episode or second episode thing, wasn't it?
I saw that one. I know that.
Okay, everybody, if you're listening to this podcast, you're not like afraid of Ted Lasso, I don't think.
Afraid of Ted Lasso? I have no idea what you're doing with that.
You're not afraid to be watching Ted Lasso. Everyone's caught up, listens to this podcast.
Gotcha.
Except
the Lasso cast. Podlast. So, where was I?
You were talking about ownership.
Well, it's like you probably don't want to be owned by like states that are bad, but then on the other hand, if everyone else is soon, then it would suck to like have to play in League One, not the French one, but the English one.
In a way, it kind of feels like, oh man, global warming's happening, so just go outside and get skin cancers. Like,
just
it's
spray
kind of how it
aerosol
feels.
cans in the air. Old ones too that have the bad things in them.
I only kind of heard that because I've turned your volume down so low as to not be echoey.
Oh man, this could be our best podcast of all time. Oh,
no,
speaking of good podcasting, I did remember one of the other points that I wanted to make about Arsenal. Can I make it?
Arsenal break. Arsenal break.
This is how I heal. No, I just think this season, maybe more than any other season, for a lot of clubs, certainly Arsenal, people will look back and it's like the biggest what if generating season. Like, what if they, a bunch of Qataris, segue, I should have used that. If a bunch of Qataris hadn't had a World Cup in the middle of the season, what if the Queen hadn't died and we had gotten to play Man City in September when we were flying high and they were stumbling? They had like lost to Southampton or something like that at that point.
Something foolish.
And so, it's one of those things we'll never know, but this is a season of crazy what ifs that way. And I feel like every team probably has some version of that. Like, what if this player didn't come back hurt from the World Cup? What if this,
What if Andy Carroll wasn't a piece of shit?
Right. Yeah. What if? That's every season that we ask that what if. Yeah.
Don't you think about that all the time? Or, like, maybe not all the time, but don't you think about that from time to time?
Weirdly, no. I've never thought about it, which is, I don't know if that's healthy or dumb, but it's a huge what if. What if there was, I mean, I guess really.
Imagine there's no COVID, but bum 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 bum.
It's easy.
And no religion, too.
Yeah, wow. That would have been crazily different.
Would Leicester be like back to back to back to back league champions?
If there had been no COVID. I don't know. The funny thing, that COVID season, they've never had a higher away win percentage. Like, because there was no home field advantage, essentially. It was just like playing at a neutral site. I would have definitely taken a neutral site last night.
Would Liverpool have not won the title?
Although, I mean, conversely, they were the ones that probably sacrificed one of the biggest home field advantages, like away at Anfield.
Man.
So, on the other hand,
give me a break, Jeff, because we are just moments away. I mean, a couple hours. We're a couple hours away from United versus Tottenham Hotspurs, and Spurs have just sacked like their 7th manager of the season.
Which is incredible and incredibly funny. This goes back to like one of my high horses that I like to ride upon. But why? Like, it's all wrapped up in making too much of individual results. Like, I'm telling you, everyone, it doesn't matter if you lose 7-1. Or what was the hilarious result that they had? They've now like reimbursed
6-1 against Newcastle.
Yeah, right.
By the way, Newcastle not known for their scoring 6 goals.
Yeah, that's like the 6th goal they've had this season.
At least when we lost to Liverpool, it's like, yeah, that's the person who beats people.
Right. Yeah, no, that is pretty incredible to give up 6 goals to them. But this is classic them. Like, I believe they fired Pochettino after minor slip up like this, where it's like, dude, it's one game, and also he's already a caretaker manager. Like, just let him keep caretaking. It's not like what are you doing? I don't know. They're hilarious, and that's why they're always going to be bad, because they've had good managers in. I mean, even like Conte, it's like he is a quality manager, but they just.
But he calls out bullshit with no filter.
Yeah. I think, but like it goes like deeper with them, and I think like both of our clubs have had a little bit of this lately, and is that feeling of trying to convince your fans that you're not shit, and trying to convince yourself that you're not shit a little bit, and you're so worried that every little slight of, oh, if we don't like spend a bunch of money, even like money, like there were times with Wenger where we were spending money on players he actively didn't want, because we wanted to show the fans, like, see, we've won out. We bought a new striker. Like, it's Lucas Perez. And, like, Wenger's like, I don't know what to do with him. Like,
it's a guy.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, I think Spurs have that mentality a lot, where they're so interested in the window dressing of, like, looking like they're doing the right thing. But I think often doing the right thing does not look like the right thing. You buy a player, like, for instance, an Arsenal example, surprise, like when we bought Aaron Ramsdale and we were the laughing stock of the league, that like, why would you bother? We spent a lot of money on him. Similar situation to Ben White. People were like, you just spent $50 million on like some guy from Brighton, and then they both turned out to be great signings. I think that's the way you have to do it, is like, you have to do things that are unpopular, because if every decision you make is popular, then other people know about it. You know what I mean? Like, you have to buy players that others haven't heard of, or you have to be willing to try things that others, wouldn't have suggested, and you may risk looking like a fool. But I think they often look like fools so much that they feel like they can't risk that anymore, and that's why they'll always be shit.
So with that said, do you think they're going to beat us today?
God, I hope not. I mean,
the new manager bounce is something that they've gotten to try out a few times.
Yeah. Who have they hired? Didn't they not have one even as of like yesterday?
Did they give it back to Ryan Mason?
Oh my goodness. They are such a mess.
Which he's like their gigs. He's like, yeah, I'll do it again. Or Carrick, sorry. I guess both of them.
Oh yeah, Ryan Mason as Stellini's successor.
He's like,
incredible.
I don't want the job full time. I just like to be around here, pick up the pieces in it.
Has there been any more movement on the Pochettino to Chelsea rumors?
I thought he walked away from that, no? Or was that Nagelsmann walked away from it?
I'm not sure.
This is a podcast where we don't know anything about the stuff.
It's every podcast, actually. Let's see. Leans on advice from Arsene Wenger. Interesting. Pochettino. That's it. I didn't know that they were close like that. I see
this is the guy that won a yearly World Cup. Let's listen to his advice.
Yeah. He had a few other decent ideas, Arsene Wenger, over his... he had one bad one.
Replace Wenger with Hitler, and suddenly, Jeff, you know what you're sounding like?
Oh, God. Was that idea the same? Was it that bad?
It's like you could do that to any word in a sentence and be like, replace chicken with Hitler.
Yeah, and
you know
it sounds like your dinner is actually really good. We're getting rid of a giant anti-Semite because we're going to eat Hitler tonight.
It's nice to be back.
It is good to be back.
So
oh boy.
I'm oddly not feeling too hot about the game against Spurs. I feel like we just barely out wrestled Brighton in that FA Cup semifinal by
good team, though, man.
We took perfect penalties and De Gea had saved none. We knew that he would not. We knew he wouldn't save any.
De Gea's got to go, huh?
And I don't know, man. It feels like Spurs is a wounded animal.
Yeah.
Multiple times a season.
Yeah.
So I think they're gonna beat us 2-1, especially because we beat them 2-0. And remember when you and I were at that pub that one time?
Yes, indeed.
I'm anticipating a loss. I just feel like Varane's out, Martinez is out. Players are tired. Players aren't fit. Bruno was in a air cast this week.
Is that when all of your good defenders are injured, that's not actually good for your football team. That's something that has come up recently. Yeah.
And when you've only got a handful of the good defenders to begin with.
Yeah, same. Parallel universes, Arsenal and United.
I'm hoping for a no Harry Maguire start. You'll be shocked to learn.
Well, so who is playing now? Because if both of them are out, it's Maguire.
It's got to be Shaw and Lindelof in the middle.
Wow.
And then we've played one game with Dalot and Wan-Bissaka being the outside backs. Dalot went left and was pretty good. And I think he score a goal in that game? He might have. But I don't know if Malacia is in the doghouse from Sevilla.
Oh, right.
I don't know who's good right now.
Yeah, that's hard.
I've also missed 2 consecutive United matches because I was working so hard.
Oh, that's crazy. That is really crazy for you to miss 2 matches. You're going to watch tonight, though?
I don't miss 2 matches in a season.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a work trip, and I'm in the Omni Hotel, as we talked about earlier, so I'm going to go to this Richmond soccer bar, not Penny Lane, because I don't want to be in another Liverpool bar.
Space. Yeah.
It's called Wood and Iron, which is a really edgy way to say old-fashioned.
Do they have a logo that has thin crossed lines in it like that?
Wood and
Iron, an X.
Richmond. I don't think I
It
saw
strikes me as the kind of brand name that would have that exact logo.
No, the website, it's just the words and an ampersand.
I'm interested to hear your impressions of Scott's Addition. This new
Hi,
place.
I'm Scott's Addition.
No, but there's a new neighborhood that basically wasn't there when we were there, and people say it's real cool. So.
I make a joke about Scott's Addition every time I come to Richmond. So Richmond, Virginia, everybody. Scott's Addition was not there when Jeff and I went to school. It's just funny that it sounds like some guy was like, I've decided to expand the town. What will we call this? And he's like, I did it. It was me. I did it. Scott's Addition. It just seems like such an egotistical name for a neighborhood.
Yeah, I had an interesting problem with the neighborhood name the other day where I saw that there were like a bunch of bars. Oh, I didn't even update you on Manchester. It's a lovely city, every part except what we visited.
Well, we're
The
gonna get
rest of
to
it
I
is
Miss You,
so
Jeff.
nice.
I Miss You, Jeff is, I think, a good time for the
Okay.
Manny stuff. But yeah, let's do it.
So when I was in Manchester, I saw that there was like this area that had like lots of bars, and it was called Gay Village. But I didn't think that that was like literally. I was like, it must be named after someone like Sir Roderick Gay, and he existed in like 1780 or something.
Or it was Happy Village, and it was named in a
Right.
similar time.
But no, it was like, and so I texted my friend. I was like, "Oh, do you want to? It looks like there's a bunch of bars over here at this some place called Gay Village. Do you want to go over there?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, let's go over there. And then maybe on the way we can hold hands and kiss." And then when I got there, I didn't see the second text message, so I walked across town in the wrong direction and got there, and it was like all like closed gay bars that were like clubs that it was like the exact wrong call for like an afternoon beer. And then I had to walk back across town, and I was feeling very dumb.
I feel like you and I, on one of our trips to Dishoom, walked by a bar that was like called like the best gay bar ever or something like that was the
I
name.
vividly remember that, yeah. And it gave me elf vibes. So I just wanted to be like, "You did it!" Oh god.
I Miss You, Jeff, which is the name of this segment for those who are just listening. There's no I Miss You, Schuyler segment because Jeff is wise.
Oh yeah. Boom.
All right.
Just
All right,
dittoed you.
This podcast was a love letter to sport, and now it's just a love letter.
Good stuff. Well,
I mean,
oh
dude.
yeah, Manchester, lovely city.
Yeah, so it's almost May.
Yeah.
I'm going to be visiting you in a couple of months.
Yeah.
All right, so
Very
sorry,
soon.
you were about to get into Manchester, and I was like, no, we will talk about our future trip.
I thought that you were going to talk about going to Manchester.
Well, no, because going to Manchester sucked. Everyone on this podcast heard it, and I want to hear from the horse's mouth how this trip differed. Why did we do the wrong thing? Was this why the hotel was so cheap?
Actually, so like, funnily enough, even the hotel that we got was fine. It was in like a good area of the city, and it wasn't that far away from the hotel that I stayed at this time. But we just walk, like, if you walk towards Salford, nothing in Salford is good. I think you would argue that Manchester United is good, but I'll just stick with my blanket statement of nothing in Salford is good.
Sure.
If you go basically any other direction in Manchester, it's really nice. There's a canal that cuts through the city, and we went and we sat at like a beautiful little like outdoor pub, had a few beers on the water. It was great. But yeah, lots of cool stuff.
Did you have a better dining experience?
Not really, actually. Like well, kind of. I had like when I first got there, I was starving, and I ate a burger because I knew who I was hanging out with, and I knew that we were going to drink a lot. And I was like, I got to put down some foundation here, or it's good. I had this real fear that I would wake up this morning and I would have to check my phone to see what the score of the game was because I didn't remember it after being there. But yeah, so I had like a really nice Nashville hot chicken sandwich, but it was just like some hole in the wall place. And then basically all the food that happened after that was like catch as catch can. Like, we didn't have like real meals. We were basically just like having beer.
Crisps.
Yeah, exactly. We had that. We did make a very smart decision to have like a meat pie at some point, and I think that probably saved our lives.
I'm glad you're not dead.
Yeah, me too.
Think that an awful lot about you, man.
Really?
Yeah, well, just because you can drink like 2 or 3 times as much as I can. Like, my idea of a rough night is 3 drinks.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. 3 drink club.
I know, I'm a huge loser. And it means that, like, for all of those, like, luxury lounges that, like, American Express or whatnot, like, I'm a pretty cheap date. Like, they probably still make out all right.
They're still doing fine. Yeah, whereas I punish them whenever they give me the opportunity.
What else is going on in your life? You know, we don't talk enough about real life. It's always about soccer and hating it.
Yeah, and I am doing so much comedy stuff now. If you're listening to this and you're in the London area, I have like all kinds of gigs coming up. And if I was a good podcaster, I I would plug exactly what those gigs are. Yeah, we're going to be performing at the Glitch soon. We're going to be performing at the Forest in a few months. So yeah, we have like some nice gigs spaced out. We're going to be at the Greenhouse Free Association show. Shout out to the Free Association that's the improv pyramid scheme that I participate in. I take their classes and give them my money.
All the little comedy clubs that you've told me about all have much cooler names than like the big famous American comedy clubs. American comedy club names suck.
They're always like the Yuck Yuck Chuckle,
the Comedy Store, the Comedy Cellar. It's like, oh, because your shitty little space is underground and it's like a dungeon. Cool.
Yeah,
it's a fun name. UCB is the only one where I'm like, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, even that is like, oh, you named a show, and then you decided that would just be the name of everything else.
Well, wait, I thought Upright Citizens Brigade was the name of the theater troupe, and then it just became more and more troops that were under the umbrella.
I think so, but then, well, kind of. I mean, I think they had their own thing in Chicago, and then they moved to New York and like tried to take the world by storm, and that was part of it. Is they set up the school. Although I might be getting the timeline wrong, because there is a sketch comedy show called Upright Citizens Brigade that only ran for like a few seasons on Comedy Central.
I remember that. Amy Poehler and Matt Besser and I'm gonna forget the other, Matt Walsh, and then there's a fourth one, and I'm not remembering it, and I'm sorry.
How can you forget Ian Roberts?
Is that who it was?
Yeah. You know what's interesting though is like, I guess this is similar to other improv teams. Like the original lineup, I always thought that it was just that and like those four, and then there were other people that were like on the periphery of it. But they also had Horatio Sands in the original cast and Adam McKay of Anchorman and all that. I heard an interview with him recently. He's a really interesting guy, but so funny. He must have done amazing.
Wait, is he the guy who did The Big Short?
Yeah. Like he did Anchorman, The Big Short. He did Vice, the one about Cheney. He's actually because for a long time he did like Step Brothers. He did like all these like sort of like silly Will Ferrell comedies.
It's a weird shift in tone.
But he's like going down like an Oliver Stone route or something.
My filmmaking name should be Oliver Stoned. It just hit me.
Great. It's very good.
Yes. Okay.
I mean,
that's if I need a filmmaker name. Where'd you go? All right, everybody. Jeff just disappeared. So I'm gonna stall for like 1 minute to see if he comes back. Feel like he should. There he is. Okay. Oop,
weird.
There you go.
Back. It's me.
Dude, you just disappeared, and it felt like you just got Thanos'd.
I'm not feeling so good. No, it just said like a random error, and then it went. It's like I reloaded it, and you were there. I was worried that the whole podcast was going to be gone.
No, Jeff. Now the podcast is ruined.
Yeah. That's the one thing that was bad.
Before then, this was going to win a potty.
Which is just like a social event in Boston. You just get to have one if you have a good podcast.
All right,
Let's fucking party, buddy.
Speaking of awards, how would you feel as someone who works in the same industry as me if something that you spent a lot of time working on, like hours and hours and hours working on it, won like, let's say 5 Webbies, it wasn't your idea, it was someone else's idea, and you just took over the project when that person no longer was working on it, when said client did not see eye to eye with original ideator.
Right.
And you just worked a lot on it, but then somebody else really like creative directed it, and you were just sort of like a helper, and you don't feel like you see that you really shaped that project, but it won a ton of awards. Do you say that, like, would you put that in your portfolio that it won a bunch of awards, or would you feel guilty about it like I do?
I wouldn't feel guilty about it because I feel like it is like a team sport. So,
but it wasn't my idea, and it wasn't. I just don't want to repeat that whole story again. But
yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I think I would feel fine about it because it's like, I don't know. It's like when Man City win, but like Erling Haaland doesn't score. Like, should he be able to count that as a win? Like, yes.
It would be like if you saw soccer player resumes and one said ran a lot and lost to Spurs as like their what they did at that resume spot.
Yeah. I think that you should be proud of it. And because I also feel like there's so many like weird ways to not get an award that when you get one, you just have to take it.
All right, I'll take the 5 W's. I don't know how to take all that win at once.
All I do is win. Okay.
How's stuff going with you work wise? Our fans want to know.
Good. Got a bunch of like different freelance projects, working with some people that I really like.
Wait, if people who listen to this work in advertising, what would be a good way to reach Jeff Itkin or find his portfolio? Or would that be doxing your life too?
No, that's okay. I think I'm already doxed myself. JeffItkin.com, or you can find me on Twitter at FakeJeffItkin, or on Instagram, just at Vitkin, Vitkin. Yeah. Give me a call.
The funny thing about your handle being fake Jeff Itkin is anybody who knows you knows how real you are.
Oh, keep it 100, as they say.
All right, should we make this a short pod?
Yes, we should.
All right. Well,
Bye-bye.
In that case, music.
Meet the suckers. Meet the suckers. A sucker podcast that probably won't last. Meet the suckers. Meet the suckers. Schuyler and Jeff don't know how to rhyme. Meet the suckers and chat shit today.